In the village of Ajo, cradled by the red earth and the whispering leaves of the forest, lived two sisters who were the living pulse of their family's compound. They were not twins, but their connection was a force of nature that made many suspect they were. Veren, the elder, had come into the world during a season of great storms, her first cry echoing the thunder. Do, who followed her 3 years later, was born under a sky so clear and calm that it was as if the world had hushed to welcome her. From the moment Do could focus her eyes, they sought Veren, and Veren in turn felt a shift in her own spirit, a new tender responsibility that blossomed into an unbreakable bond. They needed no words. A shared glance across the cooking fire spoke volumes. A thought in one's mind would bloom in the other's. If Veren felt a sudden sadness, Do would appear at her side, pressing a cool orange fruit into her hand. If Do had a nightmare, she would wake to find Veren already climbing into her bed, whispering, "I am here, little one. It was just a dream." Their father, a man of the earth, planted a mango tree the day Veren was born. When Do arrived, he had built a small, steady bench beneath it. "This tree is your sister's guardian," he told the infant Do, "and you, little one, are its second soul." The tree flourished, its branches a canopy of green gold, its fruit impossibly sweet. One evening, as the heat of the day began to soften, the world went silent for Veren. She was helping their mother prepare the evening meal, the smoky, comforting aroma of roasted yam filling the air. Though it's taking long, her mother murmured, her gaze drifting toward the path that led to the stream. She went to fetch water before dark. Veren paused, a piece of yam halfway to her mouth. She had been distracted, but now she focused inward, reaching for the familiar humming praises of her sister. It was a habit, a constant checking, like feeling for her own heartbeat. She found nothing. A void, a silence so profound it was deafening. It wasn't that Do was quiet, it was that the channel through which her quietness resided had been severed. Do, Veren gasped, dropping the yam and scrambling to her feet. "Veren, what is it?" her mother asked, alarmed. But Veren was already running, her heart a wild, terrified drum against her ribs. She flew down the path, her calls for her sister becoming more and more desperate. "Do, answer me!" She had found the scene by the stream. The overturned water gourd, the dark stain on the earth, and Do's favorite yellow-head staff torn and trampled into the mud. The village alarm was raised. The men gathered with torches and machetes, their faces set in green lines. "It is the Azog," declared Edachiji, his voice heavy with certainty. Okoro, the hunter, shook his head. "The Azog does not leave torn cloth. This is the work of men, readers from across Blivar." Veren stood amidst the chaos, her arms wrapped tightly around herself. The silence in her head was a physical agony. She looked at her parents, their faces etched with a grief that was already taking root. "No," she said, her voice cutting through the noise. All eyes turned to her. "How can you be sure, my child?" Elder Tiji asked, his tone a mixture of pity and impatience. "Because I cannot feel her death," Veren stated, her voice gaining strength as she touched her temple. "The bond is not broken. It is muffled, smothered. She is trapped and she is calling for me, not with her voice, but with her spirit. It is a pull east toward the jagged hills." A fearful murmur rippled to the crowd. The jagged hills were a piece of padlock, of old curses and jagged paths that led nowhere. "You speak of things we do not understand, Veren," Okoro said, shaking his head. "We will search the river banks and the forest edges. We will not go to the hills." "Then I will go alone," Veren declared, her jaw set. Her mother cried out, "No, I will not lose you both." But her father, after a long, searching look into her eldest daughter's eyes that held a storm of determination, saw the truth in them.
He remembered the unspoken language the sister shared. He placed his hand on his wife's shoulder. "The bond they share is a gift from the ancestors," he said low. "It has guided them in life. Let it guide Veren now." He turned to Veren. "We will trust your spirit, daughter." He gave her his own hunting knife, a sack of provisions, including strips of roasted yam, and a single parched mango from their tree. "Let this fruit be your anchor," he told her, his voice thick. "Let it remind you of what waits for you at home." And so, as the village continued its futile search, Veren turned her back on Ajo and walked east, following the faint, desperate pull in her soul.
The journey into silence. The first day was a trial of fear and weariness. Every rustle in the grass made her jump. The ache in her spirit was a constant companion, a dull throb that flared every time she hesitated at a fork in the path. That night, under a canopy of unfamiliar stars, the silence felt absolute. She took out a mango and held it, its familiar sun-warm scent a tiny beacon in the overwhelming dark. Though, I thought, pouring all my love and strength into the silent call. I am here. I am feeling you. Can you feel me? Remember the mango tree? Remember how you used to try to climb it, and then I would have to lift you onto the first branch? Hold on, little sister. I am coming. There was no answer. Before a fleeting moment, the oppressive weight of the silence lightened, as if a single note of a familiar song had been heard from a great distance. On a second day, the landscape grew harsh. The red earth turned to rocky scree, and the ferny forest gave way to gnarled thorny brush. She came across a small, weary settlement. The people there spoke horse tones and avoided their eyes. When she described though, a woman selling her city pointed a bony finger toward the lean, jagged heads and spat on the ground to ward off evil. An ancient man, so old himself carved from the very hillside, beckoned her to the shaft of his sword.
"You seek the one stolen by the silence," he croaked. "You follow a trail only your heart can see." "Who has taken her?" Veren asked, her voice raspy from thirst in dust. "The one we call Orbatsav," the old man whispered, the name itself sounding like a curse. "He is a hollow man. He feeds on what he does not have. Connection. He severs the threads of the soul to family, to memory, to joy, and drinks the desolation that remains. He has taken your sister not for her body, but for the strength of the bond you share. To consume such a thing would make him powerful indeed." Veren's blood turned to ice. "How do I fight him?" "The bond is your weapon and your shield," the old man said, his milky eyes seeming to see right through her. "He understands separation, but not unity. He will try to poison you with doubt. He will show you a hollow shell and tell you it is your sister. You must not listen to your eyes. You must listen to your soul. He gave Veren a small gourd of water and a twist of dried roots. Chew this when you feel his influence. It will keep your mind clear, your spirit sharp. Thanking him, Veren pressed on, the old man's words echoing in her mind. The pull was stronger now, a painful, insistent tugging that led her up a narrow, treacherous goat path. The air grew thin and cold. That night, as she sheltered in a shallow cave, a vision slammed into her with the force of a physical blow. It was not her own thought, but a desperate, shattered piece of Du's consciousness. Cold, so cold, stone beneath her, rough and unyielding, the taste of dust and despair. A flickering light and a shadow, tall, gaunt, draped in darkness, moving around her. A voice, dry as dead leaves, whispering, "Soon the silence will be complete. You will be nothing. You will feel nothing." And beneath the terror, a single repeating thought from Du. "Veren, follow. Please follow." Veren jolted awake, gasping, the taste of dust and dread still in her mouth. "I am following, Du. I am following. I am close." The heart of the mountain. The next morning, the pool was a screaming imperative in her blood. It led her to a sheer cliff face, its surface marred by a single, dark opening that looked like a wound in the mountain. A heavy, polished stone door, covered with faint, unsettling carvings, blocked the entrance. This was the source of the silence. She chewed the root the old man had given her. It was bitter, but it sent a clarifying sharpness through her mind, pushing back the fog of fear. She placed her hands on the cold stone and pushed with all her might. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a groan that seemed to come from the depths of the earth, the stone slid sideways, revealing a cavern of darkness. The air that washed over her was stale and cold, carrying the metallic scent of old blood and the cloying smell of extinguished ashes. In the center of the cavern, a single sickly green flame burned without heat. And there, seated on a throne of jagged rock, was Du. Her sister was pale, her body held rigid. An iron collar, cruel and tight, was locked around her neck. From it hung a pulsating black gemstone that seemed to suck the very light from the air around it. Du's eyes were opened, but they were vacant, seeing nothing. Standing over her was Orbatsav. He was unnaturally tall and thin. His form seemed to waver in the dim light. His face was a pale mask, but his eyes were the worst part, deep, hollow pit that held no light, no life, only a bottomless hunger. "Ah!" His voice hissed, slithering into her mind as much as her ears. "The elder sister, the tether. I have been feasting on the echoes of your bond, such a rich, vibrant connection. To sever it completely, the power will sustain me for a century." "Let her go," Veren commanded, her voice shaking but clear. "Why? What I have given her is a gift. Freedom from the pain of attachment, the peace of true solitude. Look at her. She is at peace." He was wrong. As Veren looked past the vacant eyes, past the rigid posture, she could feel it. A tiny, frantic beating against the walls of her prison. A butterfly trapped in a jar. Du was still in there, fighting. "You call this peace?" Veren shot back, stepping forward. "You call this silence a gift? It is a curse you impose because you are incapable of understanding anything else. Orbatsav's mask of calm cracked. A flicker of red crossed his hollow features. You know nothing. Connection is a weakness. It is a chain that binds you to pain, to loss. He swept a hand toward Du. Look at her. I am making her strong. You are making her you, Veren shouted, her own anger rising, a hot, clean force against his cold decay. And that is the greatest cruelty imaginable. She closed her eyes, ignoring him. She reached into the sack and took out the mango. She held it taut, its familiar shape a comfort. She turned inward to the place where her sister lived in her heart. Do, she thought, her mental voice a soft, steady melody against the crushing silence. It's Veren, I am here. I followed you. Remember the taste of this? The sun on our skin under the tree. Remember how mother would scold us for getting this sticky juice all over our clothes? She poured that memory into the void, a vivid picture of golden flesh and sweet running nectar. Inside the stone chair, Du's hand trembled. Orbatsav's chanting stuttered. Be silent, he roared, and a wave of psychic force hit Veren, trying to shatter her concentration. It was a pressure that promised oblivion, that whispered of the futility of her quest. But Veren held onto the mango. She held onto the memory of her sister's laugh. She thought of the day she taught Du to weave a basket, of the way Drew would always follow her around the compound, a tiny curious shadow. He is wrong, Du, she thought, her focus like a diamond against the crushing silence. Our bond is not a chain, it is wings. It is what gives us strength. Break the cage, sister. Come back to me. I am right here. Du's clouded eyes blinked. Slowly, with immense effort, they focused. They found Veren across the cavern. And in that gaze, Veren saw not a hollow shell, but her sister. Terrified, but fighting. A silent conversation passed between them in a fraction of a second, a lifetime of understanding conveyed in a single look. Du's hands, which had lain limp, slowly rose. Her fingers, trembling with strength, curled around the iron collar. The black stone pulsed with frantic, panicked energy. The bond, she whispered, her voice a dry rustle, but her eyes blazing with a fire Orbatsav could not extinguish. His everything. With a final shared surge of will, Veren pushing from the outside with all her love, Duke pushing from the inside with all her remembered joy, they struck. The iron collar did not just unlock, it exploded outwards, shattering into 1,000 pieces. The black stone shattered into motes of impotent dust that were instantly washed away by the wave of golden light that erupted from the two sisters. It was a light woven from shared laughter, from protective instincts, from a love that had followed one into the deepest darkness to bring the other home. The light filled the cavern, and where it touched Orbatsav, he did not burn. He dissolved into nothingness with a sigh of ultimate emptiness. His form unable to comprehend, let alone withstand the sheer, concentrated power of their connection. The green flame died. The oppressive silence was broken, replaced by the sound of their ragged breaths and the distant, hopeful trickle of water. Veren rushed forward, catching Du as she fell to the floor. They sank to the floor, clinging to each other, sobbing and laughing, their tears mingling. The silent river between them brought back to life, deeper and more powerful than ever, having been tested and proven unbreakable. You came, Du thought, her mental voice
But clear, filled with a wonder that made Veren weep anew. I will always follow you, Veren replied, holding her tighter. And you will always follow me. That is our way.
After their strength returned, they shared the mango, its sweet, life-giving flesh, a sacrament of their reunion. Hand in hand, they walked out of the mountain's heart and into the dawn. When they returned to Igejo, the village erupted in a joy that shook the very foundations of the houses. The story of Veren and Du was carved into the memory of the people, a legend to be passed down. It taught that the most powerful magic is not in curses or consumption, but in the simple, profound act of following the one you love into the darkness, armed with nothing but a shared memory and an unshakable bond. And the mango tree in their compound, they say, never again bore a single piece of bitter fruit, its branches forever heavy with the sweetest harvest in all the land.